Give me a minute. My nerves have got me chewing my nails again. What do you mean upcoming? We should be live. Am I not live? Why am I not live? What's going on here? Something waiting? It says you're going. So what's happening? Since you're going. So what's happening? There we go. Since you're going. So what's happening? There we go. Okay, that's still not working right. How the fuck am I upside down? I hate this thing. I really do some days. I wonder if we can just tip it and have it flip. Nope, it's not gonna work. Alright, just a second. No, I don't have a good folder. Thank you for noticing. No, I don't want to restart. Oh. You're live, I noticed. Ugh. Okay. That's the bottom, that's the top. Oh, I screwed up. Okay. Give me a minute. Do. I hate everything. That is nothing new. Do. Huh. Wait a minute. Can I? What's that do? I'm glad nobody's watching this. Can I switch that? Okay, maybe this will work. There we go. Are we upright? Are we plugged in? All right. Kind of, sort of, maybe. Don't fucking fall on me. They're humper. Close enough. Okay. Continuing with the Matter of Mystery, Book 2. Mom Come Home Today. She has Matter of Murder. This is the first book, 1992. For one law school, Yarmouth Consolidated Memorial High School. Yep, and I was looking through this, and, like, come on now. Like, this is 1861, but I don't think there's that many stories in here, because they seem awful long. But they do have pictures and illustrations. So, like, this is all Who Murdered Harry? Like, this is all one. Until we get, like, that's, like, 3 or 4 pages, so. And this is, yeah. So this one's probably going to be, each story's probably going to be on their own. A lot of these are, like, recent. So, I do believe some of these stories had to be edited. I think they caught her killer. I think this was McGray. McGray was my neighbor. And he turned out to be a serial killer. And, I think he might have been convicted of her murder. Like, the last couple of years. I got some stories about that actually. But yeah, this one's only got a couple of like bigger stories. Alright, but anyway, that's for another one. We're going to continue with this one. Let's see. We did the bank robbery. We did Jerome. I think we were here. Yeah, we did Benson murder. And now we're in the murder of Annie Kempton. Okay, 1896. Here we go. On the western shore of Nova Scotia lies a little town called Bear River, nestled between the boundaries of Digby and Annapolis County. During the 1800s, Bear River was a bustling little town. Shipbuilding and lumbering proved very profitable until the Depression struck at the end of the American Civil War. Bear River was and still is a place where everyone knows everybody. There are advantages to this situation, and there are some disadvantages, as will later be told. I had an aunt and uncle who lived in Bear River, and one day, my uncle heard a noise at the back door, thought it was a friend, got up, went to the back door, turned on the light, and it was a black bear trying to get in the house. So, like anyone else, he yelled at it, and the bear went back in the woods. But when I was little, and I used to visit them, I wasn't allowed anywhere out of the driveway or the front yard, for reasons. Peter Dave Wheeler arrived in Bear River in 1884, 12 years before the event that would end his life prematurely. There wasn't much known about Peter, but there was a lot of speculation. He was apparently born on the island of Maltese, Mauritius. It was often referred to as a Spaniard. According to some local newspaper accounts, however, Peter claimed he was a native Australian, and his parents having died while he was young. He went to work on seafaring vessels, eventually arriving in Digby with a companion and traveling from there to Bear River. It was on the Siskiyou Road that the two men met Isaac Kempton, who was later to play only too large a part in Peter's life. The men requested a day's work for a day's lodging. Isaac Kempton agreed, and as his leg was bothering him, he wore an artificial leg. But as he could only offer 1 or 2 days' work to one person, Peter went out. It was at Isaac Kempton's house that Peter met the family: wife Mary, son Ernest, and daughters Susan and Anne. Isaac had 2 other daughters, Bertha, who was at school at the time, and Jessie Amelia, who was married. After Peter had completed his work, Isaac was so impressed with the young man that he decided he would take Peter to Tilly Comeau's house rather than dismiss him outright. Isaac thought that Tilly might want to hire Peter for work around her house. Tilly Comeau hired Peter under a similar arrangement as it was made with Isaac Kempton. So there, with Tilly and her 4 children, Herbie, Walter, Hattie, and Elizabeth, Peter would live for the remainder of his 12 years in Bear River, except for his journeying to sea. I need to blow my nose. Be right back. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. In addition to his work for the Comeau family, Peter did various jobs for local people. But many residents in the community of Bear River thought Peter spent too much of his time idly doing nothing. He did often help clean up debris resulting from a string of fires which plagued the area. Sorry, I'm out of breath today. At other times, he did basic carpentry, at which he was reasonably skilled. He always seemed willing to do whatever work people could offer. And when the Camo family caught typhoid fever during the Cherry Festival and Tilly was unable to do much for over a month during her recovery, Peter spared no effort trying to help out. In short, Peter was neither overly well-liked nor overly disliked. In a sense, he was a rather neutral figure in the community. Murder at Bear River. Anne Kempton, 16-year-old daughter of Isaac Kempton, the victim of an outrageous assault. Bear River startled this morning. The details are sickening, the worst that Digby County has ever seen, and there has been few more revolting crimes in all of Canada. Okay. This was a headline on the Courier special out. This was a headline on the Courier special out of Digby on Tuesday afternoon, January 28, 1896. Anne Kempton was found slain at her home by Peter Wheeler early Tuesday morning. There is, however, a mistake in the newspaper if compared to other information on the subject. Anne wasn't 16. She was a few days away from her 15th birthday, so she was 14. Both of Anne's parents were away at the time she was killed. Her father, Isaac, had gone lumbering at Lake Lent, and her mother was living in Massachusetts with her daughter for 4 months, trying to make some money. On such occasions, someone usually stayed with Anne, but this time Anne had been left on her own. This fact was later to become an issue. Anne Kempton was last seen uptown around 9 o'clock in the evening before she was murdered. The local papers reported that she was the picture of good health, in good spirits, and her usual courage of action. Of course she'd be in good health. She was alive. Anyway, I think they would notice if they had like an open gut wound or something. Anyway, this detail surrounded the immediate investigation are many and complicated. It was Peter Wheeler who had found the poor dead girl when he called at the Kempton house the next morning for milk. At the preliminary inquiry, Peter stated that he had entered through the kitchen and found Annie. Initially, he thought that she had fainted, and he placed a coat over her. But when he turned, he saw the cuts and gashes on her body. He immediately went to Omar Rice's nearby home to report the murder. Detective Nicholas Power was summoned from Halifax and very quickly drew the conclusion which implicated Peter Wheeler in the murder of Anne Kempton. The coroner's jury was implemented, consisting of Gilbert Ruggles, Advent clergyman and foreman, Norman Cummings, John Benson, Archelaus C. Dunham, William Ills, William Hannock, and George Shepard. After hearing the medical reports, the coroner jury returned with the following verdict. We do upon the oath say that Anne Kempton, between the hours of 5 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, the 27th of January, and the hours of 8 o'clock of the morning of Tuesday, January 28th, was evidently assaulted and struck on the forehead and had several severe heavy blows and had her throat cut in several places, causing her death, and was thereby feloniously killed and murdered at her father's residence here in Bear River, and we suspect Peter Wheeler of Bear River in said county of Digby, Yellowman, to be guilty of the said murder of Anne Kempton. Yeah, I'm not thinking it's him. Signed, Louis D. Lovelet, M.D. Coroner, and 12 jurors. A number of things point to finger guilty of Peter. One was that his story changed from time to time after his arrest. His story could not always be corroborated by other people. His time was unaccounted for, especially at the time of the murder. To complicate things even more, Peter Wheeler sent word from jail to one witness, Harold Benson, 15, to change his testimony. There were all sorts of little inconsistencies with report to what Peter said. The juror was 15? Jesus fuck. 15. One of the jurors was 15. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Alright, I'm fine. I am not fine. Okay. One of the gravest mistakes Peter made was when he was being questioned by Dr. Lovett, who had paused to think for his next question. Peter blurted, "I've seen the cuts on her neck. She was laying on her left side." For evidence given by other witnesses, there was no way Peter could have seen the cuts in Anne's neck. One would have had to move the body in order to see them. The following is a direct quote taken from the Courier Special Digby, Tuesday afternoon, January 28th, 1896. That detail is the appearance of Anne surrounded by rooms of her death. The girl was lying as she fell, clothed in her night apparel, with a red quilt around her. Her hair blood-clotted, her limbs are all bruised, and she showed fearful usage. Her skull broken in and gashes across her face, her throat cut from ear to ear, and both the jugular veins severed. Blood spattered all around. A pool was by her head, and there were even drops on the window panes. Okay, did do it, Peter. The sticks of the stove wood had been dealt the blow diagonally across her face, laying by her side, blood-stained. 2 silver cast knives were also near her head, and the blood on them. A butcher's knife was also on the table in the room, but not a stain. A cup and a spoon, however, also on the table, had blood on their edges. When and why was this foul deed was done? A mystery. It was evidently committed fairly early at 1 or 2 o'clock. The body began being cold and stiff when they found it in the morning. The girl was presumably dragged from her bed, which was torn and disarranged. There were signs of a severe struggle. The carpet was torn, chairs overturned, and other signs that the girl had fought hard for her life. Liberty. The primary explanation stated on the 6th of February. Peter's trial wasn't to begin to be present until June 26, 1896, in front of the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia judge, and yet the newspapers had already condemned him to his fate. The Digby Weekly Courier, February 7th, 1896 stated, "The evidence points so strongly, however, to Wheeler's guilt that it is thought he could not escape the conviction, which would only be justice." Later, both Judge Ritchie and Judge Townsend would condemn various newspapers for actions such as these. These papers clearly infringed on the rights of the others, but unfortunately it appeared they were correct. In summer, Peter stated that he had spoke to Anne on Monday before her death around noon. At the time, he had told her to tell Tilly not to bother coming to stay with her that evening because she was going to get a morning girl today. Tilly had been very busy with work, and when she had come home, she attended to her children. At the time, Peter stated that the girl's name was Grace, that it was established that if any of the I'm busy. Give me a second to finish this, Mom. Any of the Maureen's were to get called, it would have been Etta. There were 3 different Maureen families in Bear River, but in any case, no one showed up to stay with Anne. Around 5 o'clock, Peter had been seen coming from the direction of the Kempton house and met Herb Camo, who was cutting wood. Peter stated he had been at Stan Rice's to try and get some money from Rice owed him. It was later brought forward in court that no one of the Stan Rice household had seen Peter. Peter helped Herb get the wood home. Next, Peter met Harold Benson. Hardy Benson that evening, and on Annie's bow. Peter suggested they go to see her. Hardy went along but did not go in the house due to a promise he had with her father, Isaac. Okay. Peter went around the back of the house and returned 2 or 3 minutes later. Hardy claimed it was about 15 minutes, but that he had seen no light and heard no noise during that time. Peter came back running and put his arm around Hardy, suggesting that Hardy should stay with her because the morning girl hadn't shown up yet. But Hardy refused. Following that, the Comeau family and Peter Wheeler went to the store near the bridge to make some purchases. They came back around 9 p.m. and then ate dinner. Peter and Tilly went to bed around the same time at around 11 p.m. Nothing more was heard until around 2 a.m. when Peter woke up to the sound of 3 men outside. Peter said they were talking and carrying on in a drunken manner. Tilly also claimed to have heard them. It was the next morning that Peter found the murdered body of Ann Kempton. These facts were all brought forward during the questioning. It was also stated that Peter could not have gotten out of the house that night to murder Anne after everyone had went to bed because the door hinges squeaked so badly and because Tilly was such a light sleeper that she would have heard him leave. In the beginning, suspicion rested on Peter on the following 3 points, as noted in Arthur's Truston's book, Poor Annie Kempton. He prevented Tilly Comeau from going to the Kemptons by stating that Annie had left word the morning girl was to go stay with her. 2, the morning girl said Marine girls said Annie never mentioned the matter to her. And 3, Herbert Comeau saw and spoke with Wheeler at about dark on his way down the road from the direction of the Kempt house. By the time the preliminary examination was over, the other questions had come up that didn't have satisfactory answers. Just a few are listed here. There were footsteps around the Kempton property that matched those of Peter. If they weren't his, whose were they and why were they doing there? Why did Peter and Hardy Benson want Hardy Benson to change his testimony? How could Peter have seen the gashes in the neck of Annie without moving the body, and why did he go through the house before alerting someone to the murder? Anne, at age 15, was a very robust girl. Oh my God, let me just finish this. Was a very robust girl, though not attractive, and weighed about 140 pounds. It was obvious that whoever had killed Annie had wrestled with her. Peter was only about 5'3". Why were there no marks on Peter that would surely have existed? 5. Forensics at the time was very limited compared to today. Dr. Jacques was not able to tell if the stains found on the clothing that Peter was wearing at about the period of Anne's death were from human blood or rabbit's blood. He was sure that the stains were blood, but because they were two types looked so much alike, he couldn't tell one from the other. Peter claimed that any blood that was found on his clothing were that from a rabbit. What type of blood was actually present on his clothes? If Peter did not kill Anne, who in fact did? A change of venue was guaranteed, and on May 26, Peter boarded a train for Kemptville in the custody of Deputy Sheriff William Van Barkham. Okay, nothing there. The Supreme Court of Nova Scotia sat on June 26 with Judge Charles Townsend presiding. The jury consisted of Dave North, foreman, Nathaniel Enton, Charles McGregor, Manfield, Nicholas, James Brown, Charles Newcomb, George Webster, John Donaldson, Robert Hamilton, William Haddock, J.C. Steele, and William Mortimer, who was referred to as the most noted judge ever to sit on a case in Nova Scotia. Mr. Wickwire was the prosecuting attorney assigned to Miss assigning Mr. Harrington, Mr. Henry Ruggles. Mr. Henry Ruggles was Peter's defense attorney. Nearly 40 witnesses were called, all by the prosecution and none by the defense. And at the time of the trial, the defendant was not allowed to speak in his own defense. During the trial, nothing new was brought forward. On Tuesday, June 30th, the court reconvened at 8:30 a.m. after it had been argued who had addressed the jury furthest. Mr. Wickwire closed his case with an address lasting 2 hours. Mr. Ruggles closed the address following. The jury left the court at 3:15 p.m. and returned at 5:30 p.m. after deliberations. They returned with a guilty verdict. Peter David Wheeler was sentenced to hang on September 8th, 1896. Within 24 hours of the verdict, Peter confessed. 3 different confessions later, some people were still complaining that Peter was lying, even though he had blamed the media for much of the error. He readily took on visitors and was willing to talk to anyone that would listen, going so far as to charge a dime to anyone who would do so. Surprisingly, women swarmed around to touch the hands of the convicted killer. This came to a decline as his death date grew closer, due to the limitations by Van Barcombe. Peter's moods changed from day to day, ranging from cheerfulness at the prospect of death because he wanted to see Anne, whom he had wished to marry, to melancholy. Arrangements for his death had to be Arrangement for his death had to be changed, due to the rumors that the mob wanted to turn a private hanging into quite a public one. At the time of his death, Peter was the calmest person in the room. This was Peter David Wheeler's last statement. I killed Anne Kempton, and I am going now to pay the penalty. I want to say the statement that I have made in my confessions are true. I am sorry I have been so much trouble and expense to the country, and ask you men here forgive me. I suppose it's all right now. I have taken one life for the devil, and I now give my life for Jesus' sake. God bless. Goodbye. Just as the signal was being given to cut the rope on the ceiling, activating the weighted system that would fall and levigate Peter with a jerk and a clamp to his neck, he cried, Jesus, I am coming. Peter Davis Wheeler was dead at 2:31 a.m., September 8th, yet there is still speculation today as to who really murdered. Man. Alrighty. That one's done. That was a little bit longer. That was a whole page. I can't read out loud very well, so. We're going to do this one next. I have to do some running around. I might get this one done today. Probably not. But anyway, thank you for stopping by, and sorry about the confusion with the camera.